Hi, it's Nicole Banks with Nicole's Business Notebook, where I bring together my business besties from the greater Phoenix Valley and beyond so we can know what they're doing, how they're doing it, who they're helping, and how we can all do better business together. I am really happy to have a couple who works together here on the podcast today. We have Mayan and Angus, and they are relationship experts who basically give both sides of the tale when they're helping coaching couples to live their best lives. Thank you guys so much for being on the show today.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
so much for having us.
100%.
Excited.
So, relationships as entrepreneurs are their own unique circumstances. And I know that you're passionate about working with them, as with all couples. So, let's first talk with Angus about your experience, what you've done, what's kind of led you to this point. We'll talk romance and meeting the love of your life later, but kind of the business side of things. Let's hear a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so I'm Angus. I'm actually a native of Phoenix, Mesa area, and started off going. Grew up in a house that my dad could do and fix anything, and so learned a bunch about how to do that. Always on job sites with him, all that kind of stuff. He put me through school and went into finance, and then, which we'll get into, some divorce came into play and really kind of wrecked me and took me off my game.
Yeah.
And when I realized how I was dealing with that, I realized I needed a change, and I actually went back to construction. He had kind of moved out of the valley, and it created an opening because he had a bunch of clients he didn't want to like drive back
Yeah.
down, and so I just stepped in and kind of took that over, and it was a perfect transition for me to get out of my head and start working with my hands, and allowed me to kind of get through some of the depression,
Mhm.
and then from there. Begin doing some work on myself so that I could create some of the changes that need to happen within me to create an amazing relationship. And so now I still have a construction company, but Mayan and I, most of our time and attention is on how do we help people find and create that epic relationship so that it's not just about building a business and then going home to a struggle. It is about building a business and an epic life when you get home.
No, I love that. I've gone through a divorce too, so I know the um, whirlwind. Financially, physically,
Yeah.
emotionally. I moved states and thousands of miles away, and that whole bit, and just the wrench that it can play in your life, and then having that conscious wanting of rebuilding, and okay, you're the architect of your life. What is it going to be? What is it going to look like? What's important to you? And really starting from rock bottom. So as of somebody else that's been through divorce, kudos to you to taking the time to work through the depression, and finding that vacuum that was created, and putting yourself to work. I mean, that's kudos. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, and it really is. I often say for the business owner, uh, most of us are trying to make as much money as we can. Otherwise, we wouldn't work that hard. We would just go work for somebody else.
Right.
But what we don't recognize, especially when we are in a relationship already, is that risk of loss from the divorce is probably your biggest risk.
Yep.
And so if you're not taking the time to grow your relationship at the same time that you're growing your business, you're going to end up with not just the divorce and the lawyer's costs and all that kind of stuff, but taking you out of the mental game to where you're not making as much money for whatever that duration is that you're,
Yeah.
as you put it, the wrench gets thrown in you.
Yeah.
And so from there, it really is critical for you to invest in your business and to invest in your relationship so that you can build the strength in both.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder, especially for men. There's this real push to protect and to, make sure that, the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and they're the ones that are ultimately responsible. That's a lot of added pressure. And so I think it's a great reminder that, yeah, you may be hustling to protect in that whole bit, but if you're not also working at home, it's not going to work out in the long haul. So I think that's a great reminder.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right, Mayan. So let's hear your origin story. A little bit about you, where you're from, and what's kind of led you to meeting Angus.
Yeah. So I am from the East Coast. I was actually born in Hong Kong, but I spent most of my life in the US. And my path to what we're doing now actually is very different. I actually started in the corporate world. So I got my
I'm sorry.
Yep, me too. But I got my degree in IT, and so I had, been doing that kind of ever since college, graduated college. But from day one, I was like, "Ooh, this is for me. Like I knew it wasn't for me. And as the years went by, I just felt like every day my soul felt like it was dying, every day at
Yeah.
work. And so I realized I needed to do something different. And probably in my early 30s, I realized that. And I decided that I needed to look at something else, right? And so I started taking a bunch of different classes and nothing really panned out, but somehow I ran into learning about feng shui.
Mm.
And my background is Chinese, born in Hong
Mm-hmm.
Kong. And so I would see my dad, brilliant man, college graduate, all of that. And I would see him growing up, do these like little silly things. He would put 4 pennies in the corners of the house and he'd be like, we're going to get rich. And I'm like, Dad, that's ridiculous. So in my mind, that was what feng shui was. And
Mm-hmm.
so I actually had an intuitive reading with somebody and she told me that I was going to help people with feng shui. And I was like, oh, hells no. Like, I'm not going to be the token Chinese, feng shui
Yeah.
lady. So I definitely repressed that. But I had this experience where I took this really big dresser out of our bedroom. And
Mm-hmm.
immediately I was like, wow, I feel like weight was lifted off of my shoulders and my mind felt clearer. And so it was like, oh, this is what feng shui is. It's the connection between our external environment and our internal well being. And so I got really interested in that and started learning, got certified in it, and created an accidental business out of it. And so that, my entrepreneurial journey began. And what happened was I kept seeing that all my clients were single women, wanted to attract love in their lives. And as we looked at their space and specifically their bedroom, what we noticed was that patterns over and over again of women decorating unknowingly to reflect their beliefs and fears about love, relationship, their, what they can and can't have. And so I knew this was something much deeper than just feng shui and moving some things around. This was actually at a deep belief system level. And so I ended up going into NLP training and learning how do you help someone change their belief system and those subconscious beliefs. And so I added that into my practice, kind of let go of the feng shui. And Angus and I kind of met during our journey as we were learning deeper advanced NLP training. And so that's how we met. And, from that experience, what I've noticed is, there are areas in our lives that are going really well, and then some areas that aren't going so well. And no
Mm-hmm.
matter how hard we're trying and putting the effort, it's like, why can't I get the same results, right? And
Right.
so some of those, there are clues, and some of that shows up in our space. Some of those clues show up in the way we talk, and there's all these different clues that we're leaving for ourselves that if we look closer, we can understand what's really going on, what's the programming that's creating the results. So that's what I'm really excited about in the work that we do together.
I love that. A great journey. And I think one of the things I'd like to give you kudos, man, is that you took some classes. You tried things. You tried to expand your brain and, you knew that, the IT stuff wasn't for you. And so, a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, they have that one thing and they're like, that's it. That's what I want to do. But being open to experiences, being open to education, I think really, showed you what you didn't want to do. And then even further, when, making that transition from feng shui to NLP, I think that, you were able to double down with a lot more confidence because you did have those other classes. So I think that's a great learning thing that we can learn from you is, when you're making that journey, sometimes going through classes and, any of the education that's available to you might be the best first step. So I think that that's
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking back, I remember thinking after I graduated college, I was like, I don't like to read. And it was because I actually didn't find anything that I found interesting to read, right?
Mm,
And then when I started taking different classes and followed my intuition of like, ooh, this really lights me up. Ooh, time just passes when I'm learning this. Then I'm like, ooh, okay, let's do more of that. Let's follow that because that's what's really lighting the fire. And
mhm.
so, yeah, if anybody out there is not clear as to what path to go, down, then tune into yourself to like what is really interesting, what do I want to learn.
I love that. So your first business was feng shui construction?
Feng
No?
shui design.
Should have
No,
been.
just like
Should have been.
putting the two together,
Right.
I think I was trying to make it funny, sorry.
that would
So
be that would be a good idea actually.
There's definitely demand for it. In fact, I would say Mayan gets asked to do feng shui much more than she wants to do it anymore. Like, I think she just gets so turned on by the idea of helping somebody deal with the inside
Yeah.
more than the physical space anymore. It's like people want to have that beautiful physical space, and she knows, like, if we don't do that inside work first, like having this, it's like having the Instagram family where it's like, oh, it's amazing, and then that person gets divorced in 6 months. It's like
Yeah.
having the perfect outside is nothing if you don't have that inside worked out.
No, I think that's a great reminder. It all starts with yourself. And we'd love to project on others and blame others for our problems, but if the internal isn't strong, then you're gonna get stuck. And I think that's a great reminder. So we're talking NLP. Was it love at first sight and rainbows and butterflies, or was it friends to lovers? How did the origin story of you guys as a couple start?
She couldn't keep her eyes off me.
Yeah.
No, actually, at the time that we met, I was still my head was still a little screwy, and we met the first day of a 2-week training, and she gets there early. She likes to pick out her seat and get there, so she can sit up front, take great notes. She takes maybe the best notes of anybody I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
And I was there early, but strolled into the seminar room kind of late.
Yeah.
And there was only a few seats left. Happened to sit next to her. Within minutes, she was moving beyond her introverted self and showing up kind of shy and hiding. And so she introduced herself to me first.
Yeah, I was like, basically, I don't know anybody here. I better start making some friends. And I look over, and Angus was the first person I saw. So I'm like, hi, and I introduced myself.
Yeah, and it definitely, I had grown out a beard, and as you can see, I've got quite a bit of gray there, so it looked a little bit like a skunk. She called it the rodent beard, and as much as she denies it, I think that was the magnetic animal attraction that she just couldn't take her eyes off me with that. And,
yep,
that's right.
Hey, there's Beauty and the Beast for a reason, man.
There we go. So.
That's great. So obviously met through this training. I think it's a great way to meet people, to have that opportunity to learn something together. So I think that's fabulous. So, obviously you guys got together and that whole bit, but what was the spark that started you guys wanting to work together to help others?
You want to go?
Sure. Yeah. So when we met, I was already running my business, helping women find love. And Angus really had a heart for helping couples create love. And as we got together and started dating, we realized that we have the same mission, right? We just want people to have amazing relationships. That's why we called our company Your Epic Love. And so I think, Angus, you had suggested, why don't we work together and we can support single people first? Because if we can help single people address their baggage, help them release some of those traumatic things from their childhood or past experiences, get them to a healthy place where they can actually attract a healthy partner and know what that looks like, now their chances of having an amazing relationship is going to go up so much higher, right? And so that's kind of how we got together to create our business together.
Yeah, there's an old fable or proverb that talks about a woman going down to a river to get water, and as she's down there, she sees a body float by, a dead body, and like she goes back and calls the elders, and they go pull that body out, and then they bury it. And the next day she goes down, and then another body goes by, and they come down and they get it and they bury it. Well, after a week of a body floating by every day, the elders get together and say, we should go upriver and figure out what's going on up there.
Yeah.
So that we don't just have to keep burying the bodies. And so that's kind of that's the imagery that came to me as a person who wants to help couples have a great relationship. So often by the time that they recognize that there's a problem, one of them is done, and becomes the body that's floating by. And so we decided, how do we get ahead of that? Well, the best way is to help people while they're still single, so that they attract a healthier partner, so that they have the tools right out of the gate to start at a 10 out of 10. That's just the term that we use for it. 10 out of 10 relationship, that epic relationship. And once you have a healthy beginning, it's easier to maintain a healthy and grow a healthy relationship. And so that's where our heart is helping those people find that early to create it. And I think one of the things that I want to say is it isn't as hard as most people think that it is. In fact, we would argue that relationships don't have to be hard. We know that most people's experience of them is that it's hard.
Right.
And if you're willing to check your ego a little bit, have a little bit of humility and say, maybe the world hasn't taught me the best way to have relationships. Maybe there's some better information out there, some better techniques, some things that work. If I'm willing to look and ask, I could maybe have something incredible, and it could be easier than I ever imagined.
I love that. And I think that's a great reminder. What you put in, you're going to get out. And so if you put in good and, had the best of intentions and that whole bit, great things can happen. So how exactly do you guys work with single people, with couples? Do you guys have a program? Is it a retreat like we see in the movies? How do y'all work with people?
Yeah, we do a little bit of all of that. We have weekly calls that we get on, so there's free stuff you can listen to. We have a couple of programs coming up. We have some 5-day challenges. We have some 5-week group courses. For those people who know they want to work with us, we have a short course, which is one-on-one coaching, where we do. Mayan is incredible at this. She does what's called a breakthrough session. It's where we use NLP and hypnosis and a bunch of different other tools to figure out what's going on at the unconscious level, literally in one day, pull them out, and then put in healthier belief systems. And your results when you do that, it's instantaneous. Like one of our favorite things is that we hear from our clients all the time, you're never going to believe this. You're never going to believe the man that you're never going to believe. And it's like, we believe it. And in fact, I remember one of my favorite clients ever. We were trying to get her dating multiple people at the same time, because it's so easy to start dating just one and get into a relationship that isn't the right one for you. And I remember her saying, well, I would just be happy if one guy paid attention to me. And I'm like, no. We're going to show you, we're going to help you. We're going to get you to where you're going to be dating 3 guys at a time until you know who you want to actually commit to. And she's like, well, we'll see. And it was 2 or 3 weeks later, she's like, you're never going to believe this. I'm talking to 3 guys at the same time. And it's we believed it. We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's actually easy once you shift those belief systems and you energetically show up differently. You, especially as a woman, when you get in touch with that feminine, healthy side of you, you become magnetic, and a man just wants to be in your presence. And that's where you can have a list of suitors pursuing you once you do that work that she's so amazing at.
Yeah, let's dive into that, man. So tell me about your process.
Yeah, so during this breakthrough session, it's a 1-day session. It's like we've been told decades of therapy in one day. But essentially, we dig deep as to, okay, what happened in your childhood and even sometimes in your womb. You're in your womb, beliefs get developed even that early on, and even from generations can get passed down. So we uncover what those things are that has created your experience. And then we do the release work so that by the end of the day, you actually think differently.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Will you be specific? Tell your story. What were some of your beliefs that you found that happened early on that you had no control over, so that people can kind of understand what you're talking about?
Yeah. So for me, and this really came clear after I started working with clients, but so I'm the second child, and my parents, so my sister is a little bit less than 2 years older than me, so we're really close in age. And my mom had postpartum depression, and she couldn't handle having 2 kids. And so they decided to send me off to live with a nanny. And this was in Hong Kong at the time. So I went off and lived with a nanny. And so growing up, I would hear these stories of oh, you weren't even living with us. And it was until I ended up in the hospital that they were like, oh no, we got to bring her back. And growing up, hearing the story of my dad being the hero, deciding to bring me back, I created subconsciously, right, as a young kid, the story that I didn't belong. I didn't belong with my family, right? Otherwise, why would they send me away to go live with a different family? Right. And so there were different things like that created the identity that, I don't belong, I'm not worthy, I'm less than. And in addition to that, my, growing up in a Chinese family, there's a lot of pride in having a boy. And because boys are the ones that pass down the last name, the surname. And so growing up, I would also hear, oh, we wanted a boy, but we couldn't have a boy. And so that became part of my identity too. And I became the biggest tomboy. I remember telling my aunt, oh, I am a boy, when she asked me, are you a boy or a girl? And I was like, no, I'm a boy. And I would, refuse to wear dresses, right? And so all of that came together to form this identity that I grew up with. And what happened was, well, that need to belong and not be kicked out of the family, and also seeing my parents fight a lot. I was one of those kids. I was like, oh, I wish my parents would just get divorced, because a lot of
Oh,
my friends,
yeah.
you know, had divorced parents. So because they fought so much, I developed the belief that I'm like, I'm not gonna have a relationship like that. I'm not gonna have a marriage where we're fighting all the time, screaming at each other, right? And so how did that get reflected in my relationship? Well, I got into a marriage, a relationship where I felt like I needed to suppress my needs, suppress my voice, because I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want screaming matches. And
Right.
so I, played small. And also the need to belong and, not get kicked out of the family. And so recognizing, wow, these little experiences, right, that form my childhood, form my experience, actually dictated how I showed up in my marriage. But had I not known that or uncovered it, then I would have just said, "Oh, it's your fault, right? Like
Right.
you're the one who's overcoming my voice." And so really the importance of looking at what happened in our childhood that developed our sense of and our view of the world, right? It's like we got these glasses on and now I'm looking through the world as if I don't belong or I don't have a voice.
Mhm.
And so that's part of, the story of helping our clients uncover what their lens is that they're looking through the world.
If I can add something to that,
Mhm.
so often when we talk about therapy or any of this kind of stuff, everybody goes to the trauma.
Right.
And I want to just say for those people out there, like I had a great childhood with one of the greatest dads and an awesome mom that I've ever met in my life. And I still took away things that framed and formed my belief system. In
Mhm.
fact, my dad was such a big, like, just an amazing person, could do anything, like incredible. I created a story that said I would always be a disappointment. Like when I
Mm.
compared myself to him,
Yep.
I created that for myself. Nobody told me that. He never told me that. He never,
Right.
like, he was always like boosting me up. But that was me living in his shadow, felt that way. Well, then if you get into a relationship and you have a belief system that says I will always be a disappointment, like I'm not big into like see it, name it, and claim it, manifesting, but like if you have a belief system, you're going to manifest those results.
Right.
And so going into that my marriage, believing that, like, it didn't matter what I tried, and I was a trier. I was always working on myself, but I always believed I would disappoint anyway. So
Right.
there's almost no chance of that relationship working because of the core belief system. So even if you don't have that big T trauma, you could have a belief system that's dictating your life and creating your reality, and you don't have to struggle against it. It can be absolutely easier than you ever imagined. Like Mayan just said, to let
Mhm.
go of that stuff in one day, create a whole new belief system that's actually empowering and supportive to get different results.
One of
Yeah.
our
I
if I
think it's a great reminder.
if I can share a story
Yeah.
of one of our clients. So, uh, when we did this work with her, we uncovered that in her childhood, she developed the belief that I don't have a voice or my voice isn't important enough to be heard. And so when she came to me, she was like, I've been through 2 divorces, and in her own words, married to narcissistic men. And now that she's, back in the dating world, she was like, why do I keep attracting narcissists? Right. And she recognized that, okay, I'm the common denominator if I keep experiencing the same thing.
Right.
And so once we uncover that piece for her, which is, I don't have a voice or I'm not important for people to hear me, you can see how if somebody has that belief system, you're going to be attracting people who reflect that, who validate that belief. And therefore, narcissists are perfect for that, right? They
Mhm.
only care about themselves. And so once we did the release work after that breakthrough session, the next day, she texted me. She was like, "You're never gonna believe this. I was at the grocery store, and this handsome, tall man came up to me and was like, 'Can I carry your groceries out to the car for you?'" And she was like, "That has never happened to me in my life. Nobody has, asked for what I wanted and taken the initiative to support me and serve me." And so, even just a tiny little experience like that, things begin to shift real quick
And she
once you
was,
let go of.
yeah, and she was a very powerful woman. She's a doctor. Like she's
Wow.
like
Yeah.
she is accomplished. She's not like some victim person, but
Right. She's
Yeah.
not walking around saying I'm not important to be
yeah.
listened to, right?
Yeah.
She's just walking around and it was in her blind spot.
Mhm.
Wow, this is amazing. I think, I've done some inner child work. I did have the big T trauma. But you going through and really, giving yourself that patience, that kindness, that love, that understanding, can work miracles. I mean, just, full tilt boogie there. So, obviously you guys are doing impactful work, working with singles, working with couples. Who is your target client? Are you only working with entrepreneurs? Can anybody work with you? What are the details of your business?
We love helping anybody who wants a great relationship. Most of the people who are drawn to us are women who have not experienced the type of love that they wanted. Most of them are either entrepreneurs or career women. And so they're usually, they've put career first, they've put their business first, and their relationships have suffered on the back end. And so we help them see that they can actually have both. And it doesn't mean that you have to settle. It doesn't mean you have to shrink. It doesn't mean you have to sacrifice. Like, you can be all of you. And I would argue, and I think Mayan is a great example of this, like, when you have that partner beside you who does love you, does protect you, does provide for you, does support you, like, you can actually go to the next level that you haven't been able to get to on your own. And so in no way do we think that it should cause you to shrink. It should cause you to move to an absolute next level where your whole life becomes epic. In fact, that's one of our programs is called Epic Wife, Epic Life. Even if you're not dating anybody, you get to shift into the new identity of how do you become that epic wife to attract that husband that you're looking for, or that partner that you're looking for, to create the fully successful epic life. Not just success in the bank account, not just success in followers or business, but like success in every area.
I think that's fantastic. So obviously you guys are impactful, and I love the approach that you guys are doing. For so many different relationship coaches, they all have their own way of doing things.
Sure.
But I love the intentional focus on building the person up to be their best selves to find what they want. So I think that's a breath of fresh air. So, as we close the episode, I'd like to each have you kind of share, if you could bibbity boppity boop and somebody learn from your guys' experience and what you guys are doing in your business, what would you love to share with women or men or couples in general?
For me, it's literally whatever you think that it is, it can be so much easier than you think. It can be so much easier than your experience. When you find the right technique or the right support, uh, that transformation, that breakthrough can happen so quickly, and your life can be radically different in a matter of days. It doesn't have to take months. It doesn't have to take years. In fact, we reject the therapy model that says, talk about your problems with a shrink for, 2, 3, 4 years. And I've been there. I tried all that stuff.
Mhm.
And it was like, is this working? I'm paying you $175 an hour indefinitely. I don't know if I'm getting anything out of this. And we absolutely reject that. When you can find that something works at the unconscious level and you let go and have that radical change instantly, it's a total game changer. So I just want to encourage you, if you're stuck, if you're experiencing some repeat patterns, ask for help, because it is absolutely out there.
I love that. And man, to you?
Yeah, I would say if you are on the verge of giving up on finding love, I hope that this will inspire you, because there are days where we are so high, we're achieving things, we're succeeding, and at the end of the day, it's like, wow, like I want someone to share the success with, right? And then there are other days where the other day I don't know if it was hormones, PMS, or whatever, but it was like I just want to crawl, and just not get out of bed and just crawl in there and get, just cuddle up. And Angus was there and he showed up and he actually prayed over me. He looked up some Bible verses, and just talked to me, supported me, encouraged me, and also just held me. And those are the days that, like, it's priceless to have a partner like that. And we want everyone to be able to experience that, because being able to just let loose, right? Like, be who you are. You don't have to put up a mask. You don't have to support and lead all the time. You can just allow someone else to support you. That allows you to show up brighter and stronger in other areas of your life. So I hope, from maybe seeing us together and seeing how we've had client successes that can instill some hope and hope into that you can find your love too, your epic love.
I love that. I think they're both great reminders on both sides. All right. So here's the real question. How do they get in touch with you? How do they work with you? Next steps.
Yeah, our website is yourepiclove.com, and we can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, just by our names.
Mine is not by my name. Mine is the Angus Scott, because I'm working on this, but I'm not the most famous Angus Scott yet.
Oh, okay. Well, we're working on it today.
So I appreciate your help on that.
Of course.
For right now, it's the Angus Scott.
Perfect. Awesome. I want to, say thank you to both of you guys for coming in, for, being really authentic and sharing your origin stories and divorce and, going through and changing careers and all that. The struggles that we all go through lead to the best stories, the best impact, and beautiful partnerships, both obviously romantically and professionally. So thank you guys so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Awesome. So this is another episode of Nicole's Business Notebook, where we're bringing together power players, power couples, and, power players in the valley, so that we can all learn how to be our best selves, to get past our, the big T trauma, to be nicer to our younger inner child selves, and the impact that can have on our lives. So thank you again for taking the time to be here, and check out the episode, and we'll see you next time.